Good morning and welcome to my fourth video. I'm so glad you're here, and I am especially grateful to those who have liked and subscribed. Today we're going to be making a sack coat using Timeless Stitches pattern TSM 740 Union Sack Coat. This will be the final installment of my project where I am history bounding a Union Civil War military uniform, and the last of my sort of test videos I've been doing to try to figure out how to record myself for YouTube. And I'm happy with how that's going. I'm enjoying myself a lot. So for the coat today, we're going to be using this vintage fabric I found in a thrift store. It is a poly cotton blend, I believe. I did some tests on it. It doesn't seem like it's 100% polyester, but it's definitely not 100% natural fiber. It was labeled as Pozzi Electa, some sort of Italian company. For the lining, I will be using this cotton sateen I got from Mood Fabrics. And for the pockets, I'm using a little bit of extra black polished cotton I had left over from another project. I was trying to save enough of the lining fabric to make some shorts out of it as well. Now, I've already got started cutting out all of the pieces, but let's take a closer look at the sewing pattern, and then I'll move on to showing you the pattern pieces I've cut out already. All right, taking a closer look at the sewing pattern, there's not a lot of surprises on the back. It gives you the sizing and the yardage requirements. It tells you this is not supposed to be a well-tailored jacket. It is supposed to fit sort of loosely. It's fit off the chest measurement, which is pretty standard for men's jackets. Moving inside, it gives you a little bit of historic information about the coat. There's this neat little chart here that shows who would have been issued what for their uniform. It's one of the reasons I like these historic independent patterns so much, is because they do give you really good information. This jacket is meant to be made out of wool flannel. So just like with the trousers, they give you a lot of information for sewing, handling wool, pressing it, all that good information. They repeat the sizing and fabric requirements again on the inside of the pattern. Unlike with the trousers, the fabric requirements on the inside match the fabric requirements on the outside. They were a little bit different in the trousers. As far as the construction steps go, this is a very, very basic jacket. Super easy to put together. If you've never done outerwear before, you should start with this because it is as easy as it gets. I'm going to be making it a little bit more complicated. I am lining it. This pattern doesn't call for lining, but I'm going to do that. So I'm adding a lining, I'm adding welt pockets in, and I interlined the facings and the collar with some of the leftover fabric from my trousers just to get a little bit more durability to it. I don't think this pattern calls for that either. I'm just adding a few extra steps so it's a little bit sturdier, a little bit nicer finish, but you could easily just make the pattern as is and it would be a breeze to get through it. So let's move on to taking a closer look at the pattern pieces I've cut out, and I'll talk a little bit about the welt pockets I'm adding. So like I said, I just cut out all of the pattern pieces. For the front facings, I interlined them with some of the leftover twill I had from the trousers and serged them down, like I mentioned. Did the same thing with the under collar. So I also have the upper collar. These will be sewn together to be the upper collar. They will go over this, turn it inside out, and that'll make your collar. It just gives a little more, the twill just gives it a little bit more structure. For the pocket, this is the only pocket piece that came with the pattern. I think it gets stuck into the breast. So it's a little bitty side pocket, not very big at all, but I'm correcting that by adding welt pockets. I like lots of pocket space. I've got the front pieces in front of me. This pattern has upper sleeve and under sleeve. It's pretty common to have just one sleeve, but I like the upper and under sleeve. I think it gives a better shape. I've got the single back piece that was cut on the fold. For the lining, I did the same thing. You've got the upper sleeve and under sleeve. Single back piece cut on the fold. And then for the front pieces, for the lining, I cut them just as the front minus the facing. So for the front here, the facing gets sewn on like this, and then the lining will attach to that. So the front lining is the full size of the front minus the size of the facing, if that makes sense. And then this facing will handle the button stand, the buttonholes, and the buttons on either side. So that's one of the reasons I very much like to interface them or interline them to give it a little bit more stiffness and structure. But this still isn't super heavy. I didn't use any, horsehair or anything like buckram or anything like that. For the welt pocket, I'm doing my own sort of weird system. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody else. I just sort of figured this out through a combination of patterns that gave instructions for welt pockets and YouTube tutorials. But I was always struggling figuring out how to line up welt pockets onto jackets that did not already include welt pockets. And what I came up with was, it's a pretty big pocket bag, but I will cut out the pocket bag to this shape and then attach it onto the welt piece. And then when I line the pocket bag up with the corner of the jacket front with the welt sewn onto it, you can see that the welt is already in a position that fits for my hands. It's a comfortable pocket position. That will vary depending on how long the jacket is. So I just measure it to make sure it's within normal range for me, and then put the welt pocket on front, and it's lined up perfectly for where I need it to be, even if the pattern didn't include markings for where welt pocket should be. I like them to have a little bit of angle. I like them to be sort of hip area. Yeah, that's my system. So I will do the welts like this and sew the back pocket bag onto it once it's turned inside. So I'm going to move on to adding the welts, and then I'll come back. All right, welt pockets are done. This is what they look like on the outside. Nice big pocket, fits my whole hand plus some. This is what it looks like from the inside. Not super pretty on the inside, but I'm adding a lining. Anytime I'm adding a lining to a jacket, I always add welt pockets, just because I love nice big pockets. I like welt pockets. And if it's cool enough to need a jacket, it's cool enough to want to put my hands in some pockets. So I'm going to move on from here to the construction steps. It should be pretty quick. It will go shoulder seams, side seams, collar, sleeves, then hemming. There is a facing pocket in there somewhere that I will figure out how to insert. Then I will repeat the steps with the lining and then attach the lining to the jacket. I guess hemming will come after the lining is attached. Yeah, so I'm going to zip through the rest of this. It shouldn't be too hard. And I will come back. I sewed the collar on, and when I did that, I did not encase the seams because I am adding a lining and they will be encased when I do that. I sewed the front facings down. I attached the side seams together, doing a little bit of a fitting as I go. I assembled the arms, upper sleeve and lower sleeve, making sure that I have a right and a left sleeve. They have a little bit of bend to them, so I wanted to make sure that I had two distinct left and right sleeves, and they fit correctly into the left and right sleeve holes. So I'm getting ready to set those in, and then it will be time to move on to adding the lining. Construction is finished on the shell. I am getting ready to set the sleeves into the lining. Once I do that, I will attach the lining to the shell just by placing the two right sides together and then stitching them up around the edges and leaving a little bit of a hole somewhere, like in the facing or something, where I can pull it all back out to turn it right sides out, and then I will slip stitch up that hole. I will be slip stitching the edge of the lining collar down over the rough edge of the shell collar. Once the lining is inserted, I will make the buttonholes and the buttons down the front, and that will be it. It is a very loose fitting coat, which it's supposed to be. I think that's kind of cool. That's what I wanted, a nice loose fitting casual coat. It will be nice to wear when there's a little bit of a chill out. It will also be nice to wear when it's a little bit colder and I need layering. It's nice and roomy, so I can layer other heavy garments underneath it. So I'm going to wrap things up and see what it looks like. The sack coat or fatigue blouse is finished, and it's a great coat. It's really comfy. I'm super glad that I added the welt pockets because, like I said, if it's cool enough to want to wear a jacket, it is cool enough to want to put my hands in some pockets. Something to do with your hands, somewhere to put gloves, somewhere to put masks, just the detritus of life that we all carry with us. other than that which we carry in our souls. I've noticed that I am giving off sort of Amish Mennonite vibes with the full outfit on. And it didn't even occur to me until I finished it here, but you know, I guess it makes sense. This was a 19th century workwear. It's a uniform, but it was meant for basically workwear, the fatigue uniform. And those communities that choose to live a simpler lifestyle, the men wear workwear that hasn't changed in quite a while. You know, men's clothing doesn't change that much, so I guess it makes sense when I'm going back to the mid 19th century that there are a lot of these sorts of clothing that are still in common everyday use. With this coat all buttoned up, it really does give off Civil War uniform vibes. Definitely has that silhouette, that look. If you see it in person, this fabric does a lot to blunt the historic costume look to the uniform. The welt pockets do some work there too because they were never part of a military uniform. They would be very impractical having something that could get caught on whatever. But also the lining really changes the look of it too. So I'm very happy I decided to go with a lining with a bolt print. You can see the banana leaf print cotton sateen really does a lot to modernize this and give it sort of a cool, funky look. I'm very happy with it. This may be my favorite coat to date. We'll see what happens in the future. I'm definitely going to make more outerwear, but for now, this is my favorite, and I never would have made it outside of the context of this project. For the shirt, I definitely would have made this pattern outside of the context of this project, but I never would have chosen this fabric. So this is right off the bat. These are two garments I have that I'm going to wear all the time, and the shirt is currently my favorite summer shirt, and I wouldn't have made either one of them if I hadn't done this project, so it's definitely a win. The trousers are a bit of a miss. The fit is kind of weird. They pull around the pockets, things like that. But you know, the pattern wasn't meant to be fitted to begin with, and I just took a really baggy, loose, poorly fitted pattern and tightened it up. So I guess it makes sense that they don't fit great. They're also way too short. I thought I'd given myself a ton of extra length. I didn't. But you know, you win some, you lose some. There's some hope for them. They make my butt look great. So I think the tactic would be to go to some better fitting patterns from the 19th century for high-waisted trousers. You know, maybe drafting something from an old tailoring book and go with those that were meant to be fitted correctly to begin with. I'm still working on fitting pants in general. I haven't made a pair that I'm super happy with yet, so I guess it makes sense that I'm not super happy with these, especially given the strange fit to my modern perspective. But I'm happy with the project. I enjoyed myself. I got a couple of pieces out of it that I really like. I wear the drawers too, those are fine. But I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to continue on filming everything and posting it on YouTube. I don't want to be vain thinking that anybody's interested in watching my mediocre attempts at home sewing. I'm enjoying myself. It's very fun. I want to continue on with that. I'm not going to only sew historic clothing. I would definitely am going to continue making modern clothing. I am currently getting ready to start making a shirt, pair of pants, and jacket from patterns I downloaded from mood.com. They have approximately 3 menswear patterns, and I'm going to make all 3 of them. Thank you so much for following along this project, and hopefully I will see you in the future.